Humble child stood up to the dictator, judged to defend her mother, and taught everyone a lesson. Tammy Johnson never imagined that one day she would be sitting in the defendant's seat, trembling like a dry leaf in the wind. Her hands, calloused from so much sewing, held a handkerchief already soaked with tears, while the sound of the judge's gavel echoed through the courtroom like thunder announcing a storm. That's when her 9-year-old daughter, Emma, rose from the chair beside her and walked determinedly toward the center of the room. Judge William Patterson, known throughout the Bridgeport district for his relentless strictness, looked up over his glasses and stared at her with an expression that made even experienced lawyers tremble. "Your Honor, I need to speak," said Emma, with a voice trying to be firm, but still carrying all the sweetness of childhood. "Child, return to your place immediately," ordered the magistrate, striking the gavel once. "This is a serious hearing." But Emma didn't move. Her braids swayed slightly as she shook her head, clutching a brown folder full of drawings and crumpled papers to her chest. "I know it's serious, sir. That's exactly why I need to speak. You're judging my mother without knowing the truth." A murmur ran through the crowded room. Tammy tried to get up to get her daughter, but her legs seemed to have no strength. Her brother-in-law, Richard Miller, seated on the other side of the room next to his private attorney, smiled discreetly. Everything was going according to plan. The social worker, Dr. Pamela Williams, nervously flipped through her papers. Her report was there, black and white, documenting every dirty corner of the humble home where Tammy raised her 3 children alone. What the report didn't mention was the reason for that dirt. Tammy had spent her last savings on medicine for her youngest son, Ethan, who had asthma, and couldn't afford a cleaner to prepare the house for the official visit. "Sit down, girl," insisted Judge William, but there was something different in his voice, a small crack in his armor of coldness. "I can't sit, Your Honor. If I sit, you'll take me and my siblings away from our mother." "And that can't happen," replied Emma, opening her folder and spreading some drawings on the clerk's table. Dr. Henry Morgan, the attorney hired by Richard, cleared his throat loudly. "Your Honor, this child is clearly being manipulated. I request that she be removed from the room so we can proceed with the proceedings." "No one taught me what to say," retorted Emma, turning to the lawyer. "I learned to speak on my own, just like I learned to read by myself when I was 4. Tammy swallowed a sob. It was true. Even though she was illiterate, she bought used books at the market and asked Mrs. Catherine, the retired neighbor who had studied up to 4th grade, to read the stories for her to memorize. Every night, Tammy told these stories to her children, inventing different voices for each character. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out now continuing. "Your Honor," continued Dr. Henry, "I have here photographs that prove the inadequate conditions these children live in. House without plaster, broken furniture, torn clothes." Emma turned to him again, this time with eyes shining in a way that made the lawyer fall silent. "You took pictures of our house, right? So did you see my mother working at the sewing machine until 2 in the morning? Did you see her taping her fingers with band-aids when they got sore from so much sewing? Did you see her crying softly so we wouldn't hear when she didn't have money to buy meat?" The silence in the room was deafening. Even the ceiling fan seemed to have lowered its noise. "Emma, come back here, my daughter," whispered Tammy, finally managing to stand up. "No, Mom. They need to know who you really are." Emma turned to Judge William and took a few more steps toward him. The magistrate for a moment saw something in her that made him imperceptibly lean back in his chair. "Your Honor, my mother can't read or write, but she knows everything about me. She knows I like math but struggle with English. She knows I'm afraid of the dark but pretend I'm not in front of my siblings. She knows my dream is to become a teacher to teach other poor children like me." Tammy began to cry louder. Emma was telling things they only talked about on nights when the girl couldn't sleep because of hunger. "And you know what, Your Honor?" continued Emma, now with tears streaming down her face, but without lowering her voice. "My mother goes to every school meeting, every single one, even when she doesn't have money for the bus and has to walk 2 hours. She sits in the front and asks the teacher to explain everything twice because she wants to understand how I'm doing." Emma's teacher, Linda Carter, was in the audience as a witness. She had come against her will, as Richard had convinced her it would be better for the children. Now she deeply regretted it. "It's true," said Linda, standing up. "Mrs. Johnson never missed a meeting. And Emma is one of the best students I've had in 20 years of teaching." Dr. Henry gave her a dirty look. That wasn't what they had agreed upon. "Sit down," the judge ordered the teacher. Then he looked at Emma. "And you too. We've heard enough." "No, Your Honor, you haven't heard the most important part yet." Emma opened her folder and pulled out a crumpled report card and an official letter from the school. "Here are my grades. 10s in everything. And here's a letter from the principal saying I was chosen to represent the school in the city's essay contest." She handed the papers to the clerk, who passed them to the judge. "My essay was about heroines, and I wrote about my mother. Do you want me to read it?" "That won't be necessary," replied the judge, but Emma had already begun. "The greatest heroine I know wears a calico dress and has hands full of calluses. She doesn't save the world, but she saves my life every day. When I have a nightmare, she lies next to me and sings softly until I fall asleep. When I'm sad, she makes up a game with buttons and sewing threads. When I'm hungry and there's no food, she shares the last cookie with me and says she's not hungry, even though I can hear her stomach growling." Tammy broke down in tears. She could no longer contain herself. Richard shifted uncomfortably in his chair. He hadn't expected his niece to be so articulate. His plan was starting to go wrong. "Your Honor," said Dr. Henry, trying to regain control of the situation, "as touching as this testimony is, we cannot ignore the facts. My client can offer these children private school, health insurance, brand-name clothes, trips." "And I can offer love," interrupted Emma. "What's more important?" "A 9-year-old child doesn't have the maturity to make that choice," retorted the lawyer. "Then let me show you my maturity." Emma went back to her folder and took out a small notebook with a worn cover. "Here, I write down everything my mother does for us. Want to see?" She opened the notebook to a page marked with a paperclip. "March 15th. Mom woke up at 4 in the morning to finish a wedding dress. She earned $50 and bought medicine for Ethan, chicken for lunch, and paid the electricity bill." Emma turned the page. "March 20th. Mom skipped lunch so there would be more food for us. She said she wasn't hungry, but I saw her only drinking water." Judge William took off his glasses and cleaned them slowly. His hands trembled almost imperceptibly. "April 5th. Mom sold Dad's wedding ring to pay for Ryan's doctor appointment. She cried in the bathroom afterward, but at the time she said she was happy because the ring was too tight anyway." Ryan, Tammy's oldest son, was at the back of the room. He was 15 and had dropped out of school the previous year to work at an auto repair shop. The money he earned barely helped with the household expenses. "Do you want to know why my brother Ryan stopped going to school?" continued Emma, looking directly at Richard. "Because you, Uncle Richard, promised my mom you would help with Dad's money and never did. So Ryan had to work so we wouldn't go hungry." "That's a lie," exploded Richard, standing up. "I always wanted what was best for these children. If you wanted what was best, why did you never come to our house before wanting custody of us?" asked Emma, not intimidated. Richard fell silent. He had no answer for that. "You know what I think, Uncle Richard? I think you only want us because of the money the government will give to whoever takes care of us." Dr. Henry pulled Richard back to sit down and whispered something in his ear. "Your Honor," said the lawyer, "the child is clearly being influenced by others to make these baseless accusations." "No one influenced me," said Emma. "I have eyes to see and ears to hear." She turned to the audience and pointed to an elderly lady sitting in the 3rd row. "Mrs. Catherine, can you tell the judge what you saw last Tuesday?" The elderly woman stood up slowly, leaning on a cane. "I saw Mrs. Tammy fainting from hunger at the sewing machine. This girl here gave her school lunch to her mother and went the whole day without eating." "Emma," whispered Tammy, ashamed. "There's no shame in that, Mom. The shame would have been letting you get sick." Mrs. Catherine continued, "And I also saw Mrs. Tammy sewing clothes for free for Mr. Jack's family when his wife had the baby, even though she needed the money to pay the water bill." "Is that true?" asked the judge to Tammy. She just nodded, unable to speak. "Why did you do that?" Because when you have little, you know how hard it is. "I can't see a newborn baby going cold," answered Tammy with a choked voice. "Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing." Emma went back to her notebook. There are more things here. May 10th. Mom sewed all night to finish the bridesmaid dresses for Dr. Andrew's daughter's wedding. She earned 200 Rs and said she was going to buy new shoes for me. But when it was time to pay, she saw that Ethan was coughing a lot and spent it all at the pharmacy. Ethan, a thin 6-year-old boy, was sitting next to his mother. His wheezing breath was audible even in the quiet room. "My mom always puts us before herself," continued Emma. "Always. And Uncle Richard wants us why? To put us in boarding school and get the money." "Where did you hear that?" asked Dr. Henry, alarmed. "I heard you talking with Uncle Richard at our door last week. You said it was easier to put the children in a boarding school so they wouldn't be any trouble." Richard turned pale. The conversation had indeed happened, but he thought no one had heard. "Your Honor, this is a child making up stories," tried to defend himself Dr. Henry. "I don't make up stories. I only tell the truth," answered Emma. "And the truth is you want to separate us from our mother for money, not for love." She closed her notebook and looked directly at Judge William. "Your Honor, I know you're an important person who can decide what happens to us, but I want to ask you something. Come to our house. Don't send anyone to warn us first. Just show up unexpectedly and see what our real life is like." "That's not how things work," the judge replied. "Why not? Afraid to see that we're happy even though we're poor?" The question took the judge by surprise. He wasn't used to being questioned, especially not by a child. "Your Honor," Emma continued, "do you have children?" The question hit the magistrate like a punch to the gut. He'd had a daughter, Claire, who had passed away at 10 years old in a car accident 3 years earlier. Since then he had become even more rigid and distant. "That's irrelevant," he answered sharply. "It is relevant, because those who have children know love can't be bought. And those who don't have children should understand that taking a child from their mother is a very cruel thing." Tammy stood up and walked to where her daughter was. "Emma, that's enough. Go back to your seat." "No, Mom, I won't let them do this to us." "Honey, sometimes life is hard and we have to accept it." "Accept what? Accept that they think you're no good because you're poor? Accept that they think I'll be happier away from you?" Emma turned back to the judge, tears streaming down her face, but with a determination that impressed everyone. "Your Honor, let me ask you something. If someone came here today and said they were going to take you from your family because there's someone richer who could take care of you, would you accept that?" "It's not the same thing," the judge replied, but his voice no longer held the same firmness. "Yes, it is. Family is family. Rich or poor, family is family." Dr. Pamela, the social worker, shifted in her chair. Her report suddenly seemed very cold and detached from the reality she was witnessing. Emma pulled more papers from her folder. "These are the certificates from the competitions I won at school. Math competition, essay contest, drawing contest, all while living in a house without plaster, wearing patched clothes, sometimes going hungry." She spread the certificates across the table. "Do you think I'd be smarter if I lived in a rich person's house? Do you think I'd be happier if I couldn't hug my mother every night before bed?" Judge William picked up one of the certificates and examined it. It was real. Emma had placed first in the regional education essay contest. "This essay about your mother was the winner." "Yes. And do you know why I wrote about her? Because when I think of a heroine, I don't think of princesses from movies. I think of my mother waking up every day at 5 in the morning to make coffee and wake us up with affection." Tammy could no longer stop crying. Her tears were a mixture of pride and despair. "Your Honor, I'd like to read a small part of my essay to you, may I?" The magistrate nodded. Emma unfolded a crumpled paper and began to read. "My mother is a heroine because she never gives up. When the money runs out, she finds a way to get more work. When we get sick, she becomes both doctor and nurse at the same time. When we're sad, she becomes a clown and tells jokes until we laugh. When we're scared, she becomes a soldier and protects us from everything." Emma's voice faltered for a moment, but she continued, My mother is a heroine because she loves us more than anything in the world, and love is the only thing that has no price, no brand, no size. Love is free, but it's worth more than all the money in the world. The silence in the room was absolute. Even Dr. Henry seemed moved by the testimony. Emma folded the paper and put it back in the folder. Your Honor, you can take us away from our mother, but you can't take her love out of our hearts. And you can't take our love out of her heart. She paused and took a deep breath. But if you do that, you'll be killing 3 hearts at once, hers and ours. Richard stood up abruptly. Enough! This girl is putting on a show. Can't you see she was trained to say these things? Trained by who? Asked Emma, staring at her uncle. By a mother who doesn't even know how to read. Or do you think poor people don't know how to feel love? I didn't say that. Yes, you did. Ever since Dad passed away, you've always said we'd be a burden to my mother, that she couldn't handle it, that we'd turn into delinquents. Emma walked toward Richard. But look at us here, Uncle. Ryan works and studies at night. I'm the best student in my class. Ethan is little but already knows how to read. Did we turn into delinquents? You're still children. We're children who learned values. Do you know who taught us? Our mother. The same mother you want to take away from us. Ryan stood up from the back of the room. May I speak, Your Honor? The judge nodded affirmatively. My name is Ryan Johnson. I'm 15 years old, and I'm the oldest son of Mrs. Tammy. I've been working at Mr. Anthony's workshop for 8 months. I wake up at 5 in the morning, work until 5 in the afternoon, and go to school at night. He walked to the front of the room. Mr. Anthony is here today as a witness. He can confirm that I've never missed a day of work, never been late, never been disrespectful. Do you know who taught me that? My mother. Mr. Anthony, a man of about 50 with grease-stained hands, stood up in the audience. It's true, Your Honor. This boy is an example. Hard-working, honest, respectful. Any employer would be proud to have an employee like him. And do you know why I work, Your Honor? Continued Ryan. To help my mother take care of my siblings, because that's what a man does. He protects his family. He looked at Richard. You say you can give us a better life. But you don't even know that Emma likes to draw. You don't know that Ethan is afraid of thunder. You don't know that I dream of being a mechanic and having my own workshop. I can learn those things, Richard defended himself. You can. But my mother already knows. She knows that when there's thunder, she has to turn on the light in Ethan's room and stay by his side. She knows she has to save paper and pencils for Emma to draw when she's nervous. She knows I like working with engines and always shows me the sewing machines when they break so I can try to fix them. Ryan turned to the judge. Your Honor, I know I'm a minor and that maybe my opinion doesn't count for much, but I want you to know that I'd rather be poor with my mother than be rich away from her. Why? Asked the judge. Because when I come home tired from work and see my mother waiting with a plate of hot food, even if it's just rice and beans, I feel like the richest man in the world. Tammy couldn't contain herself and stood up to hug her son. The two embraced in the middle of the room, and there wasn't a single person present who wasn't moved. Mr. Anthony, called the judge, you've employed this boy for 8 months. What's your opinion about the upbringing he's received? Your Honor, in 30 years at the workshop, I've never seen such a well-mannered young man. This boy says, please, thank you, excuse me. He doesn't swear, doesn't talk back, isn't disrespectful. And that's not something you learn on the streets, no. That's learned at home with a real family. Doctor, Henry tried to regain control. Your Honor, positive personal characteristics don't change the fact that these children live in precarious housing and food conditions. And do you know what it's like to live in poor conditions, sir? Asked Ryan. That's not the point. Yes, it is. Because those who've never been in need don't understand that poor people aren't lazy. Poor people work harder than the rich. They just don't have the same opportunities. Emma moved closer to her brother. You know what I've discovered, Your Honor. I've found that rich people are sometimes poorer than poor people. How so? Asked the magistrate, intrigued. Because rich people have money, but sometimes they don't have love. And we have little money, but we have lots of love. She looked at Richard. Uncle Richard has a big house, a new car, expensive clothes. But do you know how many times he's visited us since Dad passed away? None. Not at Christmas, not on Ethan's birthday, not when Mom got sick. I was busy with my business, Richard defended himself. Too busy to call and see if we were even alive. Richard didn't answer. Emma continued, Your Honor, I have a question for you. If love were food, do you think we'd go hungry? The question was simple but profound. Judge William found himself forced to reflect. Probably not. Then why do you think money is more important than love for raising a child? The magistrate took off his glasses again and placed them on the table. For the first time in his career, a 9-year-old child had left him speechless. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out, now continuing. Your Honor, said Emma, approaching his desk. Can I tell you something that happened last week? Go ahead. We had no electricity at home because we couldn't pay the bill, so my mom took some candles, put them on the kitchen table and said we were going to have a romantic dinner. We ate rice pudding with cinnamon and talked until late, telling stories and singing songs. She smiled for the first time since she'd started speaking. It was one of the happiest days of my life. We laughed so much we even forgot we had no electricity. And you know why? Because we were together. Because we had love. Tammy approached her daughter and put a hand on her shoulder. Emma, that's enough, my dear. You've already said too much. No, Mom. I need to say one more thing. Emma turned to Dr. Henry. Doctor, do you have children? I have 2 children. And do you love them? Of course I do. If someone came here today and said they were going to take your children away because there's someone richer who can take care of them, would you hand them over? Dr. Henry hesitated. It's not the same situation. Yes, it is. The only difference is that you're rich and my mum is poor. But the love you feel for your children is the same as the love our mum feels for us. She paused. Or do you think poor people love less? Again, the lawyer didn't know what to say. Your Honor, Emma continued, I want to make a proposal. What kind of proposal? Let us stay with our mum for 6 more months. If in that time any of us turns to crime, if our grades drop at school, if we start behaving badly, then you can take us away from her. That's not how the law works, replied the judge, but that's how justice works, giving someone a chance to prove they deserve it. Emma went back to her folder and took out another paper. This is a paper that teacher Linda gave me. It's a statement saying that my siblings and I are examples of good behavior at school. She handed the paper to the clerk. And this one is a paper from the health clinic saying we're always up to date with our vaccines and medical checkups. Another paper was handed over. And this one is a statement from Mr. Anthony saying that my brother Ryan is one of the best employees he's ever had. In total, there were 6 papers. Emma had prepared for that moment like a lawyer prepares for an important case. Your Honor, this is proof that my mother is taking good care of us. Signed paper proof, endorsed by people who truly know us. Judge William took the papers and examined them one by one. All were authentic. All were positive. All contradicted the cold technical report from the social worker. Dr. Pamela, called the magistrate, when did you visit the Johnson family's home? Last week, Your Honor, Thursday afternoon. And did you speak with the neighbors? I spoke with some, yes. And what did they say about Mrs. Tammy? Dr. Pamela hesitated. The truth was that all the neighbors had spoken very highly of Tammy, but she had focused only on the negative aspects of the housing to strengthen Richard's case. They confirmed that the family lives in precarious conditions. Is that all? Insisted the judge. Well, some mentioned that Mrs. Tammy is a good mother, but some or all? All, Your Honor. But that doesn't change the fact that the material conditions— Dr. Pamela, interrupted the judge, in your report you mention the material conditions of the house, but you don't mention any positive aspects of the relationship between mother and children. Why? The social worker found herself in an uncomfortable situation. The truth was that she had been pressured by Richard to focus only on the negative aspects. I focused on the aspects I considered most relevant to the case. Emma turned to her. Doctor, when you came to our house, did you see my mother mistreating us? No. Did you see us being rude or talking back to her? No. Did you see us dirty, hungry, sick? No, but then why did you write that it would be better for us to live with Uncle Richard? Doctor, Pamela looked at Richard, then at Dr. Henry, then at the floor. I based my assessment on socio-economic conditions. Did you base it on the house or on love? Asked Emma. On the general conditions. Doctor, a house can be built. Love can be built too. Which is harder to build? Emma's question left everyone in the room reflecting. It was a simple question, but it went to the heart of the matter. Mrs. Catherine stood up again. May I speak, Your Honour? You may, Mrs. Catherine. I've lived in the same neighbourhood as Tammy for 15 years. I saw her get married. I saw her have children. I saw her become a widow. And I can say one thing. I've never seen a more dedicated mother. The elderly woman leaned better on her cane. These children have never been seen dirty on the street. I've never seen them being rude. I've never seen them begging or doing anything wrong. And, mind you, in our neighbourhood there are plenty of kids running around unsupervised. And how do you explain that? Asked the judge. I explain that Tammy may not have an education, but she has wisdom. She may not have money, but she has a firm hand. These children know what respect is, what responsibility is, what character is. Mrs. Catherine looked at Richard. And this man here, who claims to want what's best for the children, has never shown up in the neighbourhood, not even to check if they were alive. He only appeared now after he found out there was money involved. That's a lie, protested Richard. It's a lie. Then can you tell me the name of the children's teacher? Can you tell me what grade each one is in? Can you tell me each one's favourite food? Richard fell silent. He couldn't answer any of the questions. Can you tell me the last time you spoke with them before today? Total silence. Can you tell me if any of them has allergies? If any of them wears glasses? If any of them has any health problems? More silence. There. That explains why this man can't take care of these children. He doesn't even know them. Emma turned to her uncle. Uncle Richard, you don't even know that I draw, that Ryan likes to tinker with engines, that Ethan has asthma. How are you going to take care of us if you don't even know who we are? Richard tried to defend himself. I can learn. You can. But my mother already knows. And it took her 9 years to learn about me, 15 to learn about Ryan, 6 to learn about Ethan. Do you have time to learn? I have my businesses. So, there's your answer. For my mother, we are a priority. For you, we're just another business. Dr. Henry tried once more to save the situation. Your Honour, what matters isn't feelings, but the objective conditions my client can offer. Doctor, interrupted Emma, do you want to know what objective conditions my mother offers? Go ahead. Unconditional love, full dedication, deep knowledge of each of us, availability 24 hours a day, a 9-year record of flawless care, excellent references from neighbours, teachers and acquaintances. She paused. Now tell me, what babysitting company offers that? The comment drew some quiet laughter from the audience, but the truth behind it was profound. Your Honour, Emma continued, I want to ask one more question. Have you ever heard of a mother's love? Yes. Do you think a mother's love can be bought? No. Do you think a mother's love can be transferred from one person to another? No. Then how can you take children from their mother and think someone else will love them the same? Judge William was visibly shaken. In 20 years on the bench, he had never witnessed testimony so direct and touching. Your Honour, said Emma, her voice now lower, more tired, I know you have to follow the law. I know sometimes the law says poor children have to go live with rich people. She wiped the tears streaming down her face. But I want you to know that if you take us from our mother, you'll be taking from us the only thing that really matters in life, our family. Tammy could no longer remain seated. She stood up and walked to her daughter, kneeling beside her. Emma, stop. You've already done so much for us. No, Mom, I'll do everything for us, just like you've always done. Mother and daughter embraced in the middle of the room, under the emotional gaze of everyone present. Judge William tapped his gavel lightly. "We'll take a 15-minute recess." Everyone stood up, but Emma remained where she was. "Your Honor, can I say one more thing before the recess?" "Go ahead." "I know sometimes we have to make difficult decisions, and I know you want what's best for us, but I want you to know that what's best for us is to stay with those who truly love us." She looked directly into the judge's eyes. "And those who truly love us aren't those who can give us more things. It's those who have already given us life, character, love, and who are willing to keep giving until their last day." The judge nodded and headed to his chambers. Emma stood there, holding her mother's hand, like a little warrior who had given her all in the most important battle of her life. During the recess, the room buzzed with comments. No one had ever witnessed such moving testimony from a child. Richard was talking nervously with Dr. Henry in a corner, while Tammy and her children remained embraced, not knowing what to expect. Mrs. Catherine approached the family. "Tammy, you've raised a special girl. I've never seen so much courage in a child." "Mrs. Catherine, I'm so afraid," whispered Tammy. "Have faith, my dear. Truth always wins." When the judge returned, the tension in the room was palpable. Everyone knew the moment of decision had arrived. "Your Honor," said Emma, before he even settled in. "Can I ask one last question?" "Go ahead." "If I were your daughter, would you give me to someone else to raise?" The question struck the judge like lightning. Claire, your deceased daughter, would be almost the same age as Emma today, and seeing her there, so brave, so determined, made him remember all the times Claire had stood up for something she believed in. "No," the judge answered, his voice choked. "It wouldn't." "Then why would you give us away?" The silence that followed was broken only by the sound of the ceiling fan. Judge William looked at Tammy, at the children, at Richard, at Dr. Henry, and then back at Emma. "There's something you don't know," said the magistrate, taking off his glasses and cleaning them slowly. "Something that could change the course of this hearing." Everyone leaned in to listen. "I've known this family longer than you imagine." Tammy raised her eyes, surprised. 3 years ago, when my daughter Claire died in a car accident, I went through a very difficult period. I stopped eating, I stopped sleeping, I stopped living." The judge paused, visibly emotional. "One day a woman showed up at my house. She was a stranger. She brought a hot meal and said she had heard about my loss. She said she was a mother too and knew how painful it was to lose a child." Tammy's eyes widened. She remembered that day. This woman came back every day for a month, always with food, always with a word of comfort. She never asked for anything in return. She never properly identified herself. She only said she was from the Newtown neighborhood and that one mother couldn't watch another person suffer. Tears began to stream down the judge's face. "This woman helped me start living again. Thanks to her, I was able to overcome the loss of my daughter. And that woman was you, Tammy." The entire room was in shock. Tammy began to cry profusely. "I remember, yes," she said. "You were so thin, so sad. I couldn't leave you like that." "Why did you do that?" asked the judge. "You didn't even know me." "Because a mother's pain I know well, and no one deserves to suffer alone." Judge William stood up and walked toward Tammy. "Tammy Johnson, you saved me when I needed it most, and today, seeing your daughter here, defending you with such courage, I understand where she got this strength, this dignity, this love." He turned to Richard. "Mr. Richard Miller, throughout this hearing, I've observed your reactions. I've watched your responses, and I can say that at no point did I see the genuine love that should exist in someone who wants to care for children." "But I can offer a better life," Richard tried to argue. "A materially better life, perhaps, but not an emotionally better one. And for a child, the emotional is much more important than the material." The judge returned to his desk. "Dr. Pamela, your report focused only on the socio-economic aspects, completely ignoring the human aspects of this family. That is a serious flaw in your assessment." The social worker lowered her head, ashamed. Mr. Dr. Henry, you tried to build a case based only on money, ignoring family bonds and the children's emotional well-being. That is not justice, it's commercialism. The lawyer did not respond. The judge looked at Emma. And you, brave girl, gave me a lesson today that I will carry for the rest of my life. You reminded me that justice isn't about blindly following rules, but about doing what's right for people. He picked up his gavel. Given the above, and considering the best interests of the children involved, I decide to maintain custody of the children, Emma Johnson, Ryan Johnson, and Ethan Johnson, with their mother, Tammy Johnson. The room erupted in applause. Emma ran to hug her mother, followed by her brothers. Mrs. Catherine cried with joy. Mr. Anthony smiled and nodded positively. But, continued the judge, making the room quiet again, Mr. Richard Miller, you will have to pay monthly child support to help provide for the children, as is your legal duty as the closest relative of the deceased father. Richard turned pale. This wasn't what he had expected. Furthermore, continued the magistrate, I order that the Johnson family be enrolled in social assistance programs for housing and food to improve their living conditions. And one more thing, said the judge, looking at Tammy. Mrs. Johnson, I would like to offer you a job at the courthouse. We need a seamstress to take care of the robes and staff uniforms. The salary is 2,000 rays per month, with all employment rights. Tammy couldn't believe what she was hearing. Accept it, Mum, whispered Emma. The judge is a good person. I accept, yes, sir. Accept, yes. Thank you very much. Judge William pounded his gavel for the last time. This hearing is adjourned, and let this be a lesson to us all. True love has no price, and a united family is the greatest treasure anyone can have. Emma ran to the judge's bench, and to everyone's surprise, hugged him. Thank you, Your Honor, you're a hero. No, Emma, the hero here is you. You taught me that courage has no age, and that family love is the most powerful force in the world. As everyone left the room, Richard and Dr. Henry remained seated, visibly frustrated. Their plans to profit from the situation had completely failed. Outside the courthouse, the Johnson family walked arm in arm. The sun shone brightly, as if celebrating the victory of love over self-interest. Mom, said Emma, now you'll be able to buy those better medicines for Ethan. And I'll be able to go back to school, said Ryan. With the child support money and Mom's salary, I'll be able to stop working and focus on my studies. Ethan, who had remained quiet throughout the hearing, finally spoke. Mom, are we going to have a better house now? Yes, my son, and more importantly, we'll stay together. Weeks later, Emma's story had spread throughout the city. The girl who stood up to a judge to defend her mother became an example of courage and filial love. Judge William, who had become more humane after that day, began visiting the Johnson family regularly. He had found in Tammy and her children the family he had lost with Claire's death. Tammy thrived in her new job. Her dedication and care made her the most beloved employee at the courthouse. In no time, she was promoted to supervisor of the textile maintenance department. Ryan returned to his studies and, with the support of his family and Judge William, obtained a scholarship to study mechanics. His dream of having his own workshop was getting closer. Ethan, with proper medical care, had his asthma controlled and started taking swimming lessons, which strengthened his lungs and improved his overall health. And Emma, the little heroine of the family, continued to be the best student in school. Her dream of becoming a teacher remained firm, but now she had a new goal: to be a lawyer to defend other families like hers. The Johnson family's house was renovated with the child support money and Tammy's new salary. It wasn't a mansion, but it was a home full of love, laughter, and fulfilled dreams. Mrs. Catherine, who had witnessed the family's entire struggle, became a sort of adoptive grandmother to the children. Her neighboring house became an extension of the Johnsons' home, where there was always a hot cup of coffee and a kind word. Mr. Anthony promoted Ryan to technical assistant in his workshop and committed to teaching him all the secrets of the trade. The boy who had dropped out of school to work now balanced both with mastery. Richard, in turn, learned a hard lesson about what truly matters in life. The obligation to pay child support made him rethink his priorities, and gradually he began to genuinely connect with the children, not out of self-interest. Dr. Henry, the attorney, changed his approach to work after that case. He started investigating families involved in custody disputes more thoroughly, always prioritizing the children's emotional well-being over financial matters. Miss Pamela, the social worker, took a specialization course in family psychology and began crafting more humane and comprehensive reports, considering not only material conditions, but also the emotional bonds within families. The Johnson case set a legal precedent in the county. Other judges began citing Dr. Williams' ruling in similar cases, establishing an important precedent in defending the maintenance of healthy family ties, regardless of socio-economic status. 1 year after that memorable day in court, Emma won the National Essay Contest for elementary school students. Her essay, titled "The Day Love Conquered Money," moved the judges and became required reading in schools across the country. At the awards ceremony, Emma was asked by a reporter what inspired her to write that essay. "I wrote about the most important day of my life," she replied. "The day I learned that family love is the greatest wealth in the world." And what would you say to other children going through similar situations? I would tell them never to give up fighting for their family, because family isn't about who can give us more things, but who gives us more love. The audience stood up to applaud. Among those present were Tammy, Ryan, Ethan, Judge William, Mrs. Catherine, and Mr. Anthony. They were all crying with emotion and pride. 2 years later, Ryan graduated as a mechanical technician with the top grade in his class. At the graduation, he gave a speech that touched everyone present. "I want to dedicate this diploma to my mother, who taught me that work dignifies a person, to my sister Emma, who taught me that courage has no age, to my brother Ethan, who taught me that caring for the younger ones is the responsibility of the older ones, and to Dr. William, who taught me that true justice is done with the heart." He paused, visibly moved. "But most of all, I dedicate this diploma to all the poor families in this country to prove that poverty is not destiny, it's just a starting point." Ethan, now 8 years old and fully recovered in health, had become an excellent swimmer. His first medal was dedicated to the mother who never gave up caring for him, even when she had no money for medicine. Judge William, who had become a father figure to the children, followed each of the family's achievements with paternal pride. He had found a new meaning for his life and his profession. "Tammy," he said one day during a family lunch, "do you know you saved me not once but twice?" "How so, doctor?" "The first time was when my daughter died. The second time was when your daughter taught me the true meaning of justice." Tammy smiled, serving him another plate of food. "Doctor, we don't save anyone. We just help people save themselves." 3 years after the hearing, Emma, now 12 years old, had become a local celebrity. Her story inspired other children and families in situations of social vulnerability. She created a project at school called Children of the Heart, where children from separated families received free psychological support and legal guidance. The project had the support of Judge William and several community volunteers. "Emma," a journalist asked during an interview, "do you still dream of becoming a teacher?" "Yes, I do, but now I also want to be a lawyer. I want to defend children who go through what I went through." "And what did you learn from this whole experience?" "I learned that family isn't a matter of money, it's a matter of love. I learned that courage is doing what's right even when everyone thinks you're wrong. And I learned that sometimes children can teach important things to adults." The Johnson family's story became a symbol of resilience and family unity. In schools, churches, and community centers, Emma's story was told as an example that true love always finds a way. Tammy, now the general supervisor of the courthouse maintenance department, had enrolled in an adult literacy course. At 35, she was learning to read and write, fulfilling a long-held dream. "Mum, why did you want to learn to read now?" asked Emma, helping her with homework. "Because I want to read your essays with my own eyes. I want to understand every word you write about our family." The first essay Tammy read by herself was exactly the one Emma had written about her years earlier. When she finished, mother and daughter cried together, embracing, celebrating another victory achieved as a family. Ryan, now 18, had managed to open a small auto repair shop in partnership with Mr. Anthony. The business was thriving, and he already employed 2 assistants. His dream was to expand and create a technical school for underprivileged youth in the neighborhood. Ethan, at 9 years old, besides being a promising swimmer, had discovered a talent for music. He was learning to play guitar in classes offered by the community center and dreamed of forming a band with his friends. The Johnson family home had transformed into a true community gathering place. Tammy offered free sewing classes for neighborhood women, teaching them to have a profession and achieve financial independence. Mrs. Catherine, now 75, had become the official matriarch of the large family that the Johnson home had become. Her stories and advice were listened to religiously by everyone. Mr. Anthony, besides being Ryan's partner in the shop, had married a retired teacher and become a kind of adoptive uncle to the neighborhood children. His shop became a meeting place for community youth. Judge William, transformed by that experience, had become one of the most respected and beloved magistrates in the county. His humane way of handling cases inspired other colleagues to rethink their professional practices. One day, during a graduation ceremony at the courthouse, he was asked what had been the most memorable case of his career. "It was the Johnson family case," he answered without hesitation, "not because it was legally complex, but because it taught me that true justice is achieved when we consider not just the law, but especially what is most human and right." And what would you say to other magistrates facing similar cases? I would tell them to always remember that behind every case there are real people, with real feelings, with real bonds, and that sometimes a 9-year-old child can have more wisdom than all the law books in the world. 5 years after the famous hearing, Emma, now 14, had become one of the best students in the region. Her exemplary grades and history of social engagement earned her a full scholarship to one of the best private schools in the city. When she heard the news, her first reaction was doubt. "Mum, is it right for me to go to a rich kids' school?" "Why wouldn't it be, my daughter?" "Because I'm afraid I'll forget where I came from." Tammy held her daughter's face in her hands. "Emma, you can study wherever you want, live wherever you want, be whatever you want, but you'll never forget where you came from, because that's part of who you are. And what if the rich kids don't like me? If they don't like you, that's their problem. You don't have to change who you are to please anyone. You'll be yourself, proud of your roots and your family." On the first day at the new school, Emma was introduced to her classmates as the girl who stood up to a judge. The story had reached there, and some students looked at her with curiosity. During recess, a group of girls approached her. "Is it true you lived in a house without plaster?" one of them asked, with a hint of mockery. "It's true," Emma replied, unshaken. "And it's also true that it was the happiest house in the world." "How can a poor house be happy?" "Because happiness doesn't live in the house. It lives in the hearts of the people who live in it." The answer silenced the girls. One of them, named Caroline, stepped closer. "Sorry if it seemed like we were making fun. It's just that we've never met anyone like you." "Like what?" "Someone who had to fight for things that are guaranteed for us, like staying with their own mother." "Everyone has to fight for something in life," Emma answered. "You too." "Us? Why?" "Because you have to fight, not to lose your humanity amid so much wealth. You have to fight not to think you're better than others just because you have more money." The conversation marked the beginning of a friendship that would transform not only Emma, but also her new classmates. They started visiting the Johnson family home, learning about values that money couldn't buy. Caroline, the daughter of a wealthy but always absent businessman, found in the Johnson family the affection she lacked at home. She began calling Tammy Aunt, and considered Emma a wiser sister. "Aunt Tammy," she said one day, "my parents have a lot of money, but after meeting you all I realized we're poor in love." "Don't say that, my dear. Your parents work hard to give you the best. But they don't give me what you give to Emma." "What's that?" "Time, attention, affection." "When Emma speaks, you really listen. When I speak at home, it feels like my parents are always thinking about something else." Tammy hugged the girl. "Caroline, my dear, every family has its own way of loving. Maybe your parents don't know how to show it, but I'm sure they love you very much." "How can you be so sure?" "Because there's no parent who doesn't love their child. Sometimes they just don't know how to show it." Tammy's simple wisdom touched everyone who spent time with the family. Her ability to see the good in people and situations inspired those around her. During school holidays, Caroline convinced her parents to hire Tammy to make the curtains for the new house they were building. It was the first time the Johnson family had entered a mansion. "Wow, what a big house," commented Ethan, impressed. "It is big," replied Emma, "but it's not bigger than our heart." Caroline's father, Dr. Edward, was impressed by the Johnson children's manners and maturity. "Mrs. Johnson, how did you manage to raise such special children? There's no secret, Doctor, just love them truly and be there for them always. But you work all day." "I do work, but when I get home, I'm entirely theirs. I'm not on my phone, not watching TV. I listen to how their day went, help with homework, talk about their problems." Dr. Edward reflected on his own practices as a father. Even when he was at home, he was always connected to work, always distracted. "Could you teach my wife to cook simple dishes like yours? Caroline loves eating here." "Of course I can, but the most important ingredient can't be taught." "What ingredient is that?" "Love, Doctor. Food made with love always tastes better." From that day on, a genuine friendship developed between the two families. Dr. Edward and his wife, Dr. Pamela, coincidentally sharing the same name as the social worker on the case, began visiting the Johnson household regularly and learning about authentic family values. Ryan, now 20 years old, had become a respected young entrepreneur in the community. His workshop employed 8 people and offered free vocational training for underprivileged youth. In an interview with the local newspaper, he was asked about the secret to his success. "The secret isn't mine, it's my family's. My mother taught me that work brings dignity. My sister taught me that courage moves mountains. My brother taught me that caring for others helps us grow." "And your plans for the future?" "I want to expand the workshop and create a foundation to help families in vulnerable situations. I want to do for others what was done for us." Ethan, at 10 years old, had become a regional swimming prodigy. His medals decorated the room he shared with Ryan, but his greatest achievement was having completely overcome his respiratory problems. "Ethan," asked a coach from the regional team, "what's your biggest dream?" "My biggest dream is to win an Olympic gold medal and dedicate it to my mother." "Why?" "Because she never gave up caring for me, even when she had no money for medicine. If I can swim today, it's because she believed in me when even the doctors didn't." Ethan's humility and gratitude touched everyone. Even as a national sports prospect, he remained grounded with his heart devoted to family. Judge William, now nearing retirement, had become a sort of patriarch to the large family that formed around the Johnsons. His personal transformation was evident to all who knew him. "Doctor," said Tammy during a Sunday lunch, "you've changed a lot since we first met." "Changed? How?" "You smile more. You play with the children. You seem more human." The judge laughed. "You gave me back the humanity I had lost. You reminded me that being just isn't being cold, it's being human." "And us? Have we changed too?" "You haven't changed. You've grown. You kept all the good you already had, and added knowledge, opportunities, dreams fulfilled." Emma, who was listening to the conversation, approached. "Dr. William, can I ask a question?" "Of course, my dear." "Do you regret letting us stay together?" "Regret?" He smiled. "Emma, that was the best decision I made in my entire career. You proved to me that love can overcome any difficulty. And what if we had caused trouble? What if we had become delinquents like Uncle Richard said would happen? But you didn't. And do you know why? Because you had a solid foundation. You had love, values, character. That doesn't get lost, doesn't get destroyed. Richard, who during the first years had paid child support reluctantly, had gradually drawn closer to the family and transformed as well. Contact with his nieces and nephews had awakened paternal feelings in him he never knew existed. "Tammy," he said one day, "I want to apologize." "Apologize for what, Richard?" "For trying to separate you. For thinking money was more important than love. For being so blind. You're already forgiven. What matters is that you're now truly part of the family. How can you forgive me so easily? Because holding grudges only hurts the one holding them, and because you've changed. You've become a real uncle to my children. Indeed, Richard had transformed. He visited the family regularly, brought gifts, participated in celebrations, and most importantly, showed genuine love for the children. "Uncle Richard," said Emma at his birthday party, "thank you for trying to take us away from Mom." Everyone laughed at the seemingly nonsensical statement. "Why are you thanking me for that?" he asked, intrigued. "Because if you hadn't tried, we would never have proven to everyone how special our family is, and you would never have learned to truly love us." Emma's wisdom, even at 14, impressed everyone. She had learned to turn every experience, even the difficult ones, into learning and growth. End of story. Now tell us what you thought of this touching story. Do you believe Emma made the right decision by confronting the judge? Which part moved you the most? Leave your honest comments and don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel for more heartwarming stories.